Bank of Canada wary of signs of a turning point in economy, as it hikes key interest rate again. As we've seen in the recent surge in climate disasters, the effect of a gradual increase in temperatures does not necessarily result in a gradual impact on people's daily lives. Nor does it affect people equally. Wednesday's monetary policy report from the Bank of Canada offered a similar lesson, as the central bank once again warned that the poor and overborrowed were likely to suffer more from both high inflation and the high borrowing rates needed to bring down stubborn inflation.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
High inflation and the high borrowing rates needed to bring down stubborn inflation. While he admitted that the latest quarter-point hike in its key rate to 5% would hurt many people, Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem warned that he remained wary of overshoot, with the possibility that the lagging effects of a long series of interest rate hikes could kick in suddenly and put the economy into reverse. Unnecessary pain? We're trying to balance the risks of under and over tightening, Macklem said in answer to a reporter's question at Wednesday's news conference in Ottawa. If we do more than we need now, it's going to be unnecessarily painful. Asked repeatedly by reporters why a string of 10 interest rate hikes had not had a stronger impact on inflation, including food and house prices, Macklem and Senior Deputy Governor Carolyn Rogers cited a number of effects, including a housing shortage, a strong labor market, and the post-pandemic surge in immigration.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Rogers cited a number of effects, including a housing shortage, a strong labor market, and the post-pandemic surge in immigration that recently sent Canada's population to the 40 million mark. But the other thing that may be buffering the effects of higher rates are forces similar to the K-shaped recovery that we saw after the COVID-19 pandemic meltdown. Just as we've seen in recent climate disasters, not everyone is affected the same. We deal in a lot of aggregate numbers and averages, but we know that inflation and interest rates affect people very differently, Rogers said. In particular, we know that the most vulnerable Canadians are the ones that are hurt most both by inflation and by higher interest rates. While news stories quite fairly focus on the plight of the worst off, a majority of Canadians remain in financial good shape, she said. And those better off Canadians are able to keep spending even as prices rise. There are two things that are helping buffer many households from both inflation and interest rates, and that is the savings they accumulated over the course of the pandemic. You can see 3/4 of households have accumulated quite a bit more savings than they had prior to the pandemic, Rogers said, citing the Monetary Policy Report, MPR, which contains many interesting graphs and charts. The other thing we think is supporting confidence and buffering Canadians from some of the impacts is the strong labor market, she said, adding that people are not afraid of losing their jobs. Central banks have been wrong. While Macklem and Rogers emphasized the view that we are heading to a slow and smooth soft landing without heading to recession, an MPR outlook is never complete without a mention of the downside risks. It's ridiculous to think that a quarter-point rate hike on Wednesday would make the difference between starting a recession and avoiding recession, longtime Edmonton financial analyst and author Hilliard Macbeth wrote in a social media post this week. But of course there are many examples of what we might call the last straw effect, when a final increase in rates or the final rise in global temperatures can lead to a cascade of consequences. The impossible thing to know in advance is when the moment is reached. Certainly both the Bank of Canada and the U.S. Federal Reserve have gotten sudden changes wrong in the past. Many economists have suggested that central banks around the world have gone too far, too fast in hiking rates, and that the well-known lagging effect of previous sharp rate hikes could come all at once. Canadian author Malcolm Gladwell wrote a whole book about the concept in The Tipping Point, that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. In the climate context, that wording might be disquieting in a year when the hectares burned in Canadian wildfires hit a new magic moment. In the Canadian economy, there are a number of negative indicators that could come together to cross a threshold. Hints of a June slowdown in home sales could be confirmed in Friday's latest real estate data. A sharp fall in U.S. inflation on Wednesday, new rules to cut risk on mortgage extensions and this week's announced decline in sales at Aritzia are potential signs that the economy may be reaching a turning point. Growing signs of a slowdown. Increased missed payments on products like credit cards and auto loans are a concern, Rebecca Oakes, Vice President of Advanced Analytics at Equifax Canada, said in a release of new data last month. The average interest rate that mortgage holders are paying is still well below what you'd pay if you had to renew now. As each person's renewal comes due, they will have to take money from their consumer spending to debt repayment. The impact of the rate hikes were felt in markets, especially bonds, in real time, but the real economy is only just starting to feel the real effects of the tightening of the credit channel, Cullen Roche, a well-known U.S. money manager, said in a social media post. This week, inflation in China, a country blamed for contributing to global price hikes due to its pandemic industrial shutdowns, fell to zero, with producer prices actually shrinking. Former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz used to say he had to steer by looking in the rearview mirror. On Wednesday, the current governor said while there may still be more rate hikes ahead and little chance of interest rate cuts, he'll watch the economy meeting by meeting in order to be ready for the unexpected. A well-known U.S. money manager, said in a social media post. This week, inflation in China, a country blamed for contributing to global price hikes due to its pandemic industrial shutdowns, fell to zero, with producer prices actually shrinking. Former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz used to say he had to steer by looking in the rearview mirror. On Wednesday, the current governor said while there may still be more rate hikes ahead and little chance of interest rate cuts, he'll watch the economy meeting by meeting in order to be ready for the unexpected. The economy meeting by meeting in order to be ready for the unexpected.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos. Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Google's ChatGPT rival Bard launches in Europe and Brazil. Google's parent company Alphabet is rolling out its artificial intelligence chatbot Bard in Europe and Brazil. It is the product's biggest expansion since its March launch in the US and the UK and heats up the rivalry with Microsoft's ChatGPT. Both are examples of generative AI that can respond to questions in a human-like way.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
That can respond to questions in a human-like way. Bard's launch in the EU had been held up after the main data regulator in the bloc raised privacy concerns. The Irish Data Protection Commission said that the tech giant had not provided enough information about how its generative AI tool protects Europeans' privacy to justify an EU launch. The company said it has since met the watchdogs to reassure them on issues relating to transparency, choice and control. In a briefing with journalists, Amar Subramanya, engineering vice president of Bard, added that users could opt out of their data being collected. Mr. Subramanya declined to comment on whether there were plans to develop a Bard app. Bard is an experiment, he said. We want to be bold and responsible. Bard can talk. Google has also now added new features to Bard, which apply worldwide. These include the ability for the chatbot to speak its answers back to you and for it to
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Features to Bard, which apply worldwide. These include the ability for the chatbot to speak its answers back to you and for it to respond to prompts that also include images. Starting today, you can collaborate with Bard in over 40 languages, including Arabic, Chinese, German, Hindi and Spanish, Google Senior Product Director Jack Kroczek said in a blog post. Sometimes hearing something out loud can help you approach your idea in a different way. This is especially helpful if you want to hear the correct pronunciation of a word or listen to a poem or script. He said users can now change the tone and style of Bard's responses to either simple, long, short, professional, or casual. They can also pin or rename conversations, export code to more places and use images in prompts. Wave of investment. The hype around the capabilities of generative AI has prompted global tech figures to call for a halt on their development. Depending on who you speak to, AI could either lead to the end of humanity or solve climate change, or both. Over the last 6 months, companies have been investing billions with the hope of generating much more in advertising and cloud revenue. Mistral AI, a startup that was just a month old, picked up an £86 million round of seed funding to build and train large language models. This week Elon Musk announced the formation of an AI startup called XAI, with a team including several engineers that have worked at OpenAI and Google. Mr. Musk has previously stated he believes developments in AI should be paused and that the sector needs regulation. Elsewhere, American AI company Anthropic launched another rival chatbot to ChatGPT called Claude 2, which can summarize novel-sized blocks of text. Claude 2 is publicly available in the US and the UK and uses a safety method described by the company as constitutional AI, referring to a set of principles to make judgments about the text it is producing. Nonetheless, novelty appeal in AI chatbots may be waning, with recent web user numbers showing that monthly traffic to Chat's website and unique visitors declined for the first time in June. Google has also been hit by a fresh class action in the US over the alleged misuse of users' personal information to train Bard. The complaint, filed in San Francisco federal court by 8 individuals seeking to represent millions of Internet users and copyright holders, said Google's unauthorized scraping of data from websites violated their privacy and property rights. Google does not own the Internet, it does not own our creative works, it does not own our expressions of our personhood, pictures of our families and children, or anything else simply because we share it online, the plaintiff's attorney Ryan Clarkson said in a statement. Scraping of data from websites violated their privacy and property rights. Google does not own the Internet, it does not own our creative works, it does not own our expressions of our personhood, pictures of our families and children, or anything else simply because we share it online, the plaintiff's attorney Ryan Clarkson said in a statement.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos. Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Sunak considers plans to give public sector workers 6% pay rises. Rishi Sunak will on Thursday be presented with plans to give 1 million public sector workers a pay rise of around 6% as he juggles avoiding more strikes and his pledge to have inflation. The Prime Minister and Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, will meet to reach a final decision on recommendations from each of the public sector pay review bodies.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
From each of the public sector pay review bodies. Salaries for public sector teachers, health consultants, junior doctors, prison service workers, policemen, and the armed forces are expected to be announced on Thursday. While each pay body has proposed its own figures, the average recommended rise for 2023/24 is understood to be around 6%, far above the 3.5% suggested by the Treasury. That would mean around an extra £3 billion in public spending. A 6.5% pay rise has been recommended for teachers, and a 6% rise for health consultants. Mr. Hunt has refused to cover any extra increases with more borrowing, arguing that could fuel inflation. It means departments have been scrambling to find savings elsewhere in their budgets. On Wednesday night, Downing Street and Treasury insiders insisted no final decision had been taken, with Mr. Sunak yet to make up his mind.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Night, Downing Street and Treasury insiders insisted no final decision had been taken, with Mr. Sunak yet to make up his mind after flying back from a NATO summit on Wednesday. It is possible that he could agree to accept pay review recommendations across the board, accept some and reject others, or agree to lower rises across the board. On Wednesday, there was growing expectation in Whitehall that many recommendations would be accepted. Going against pay review recommendations would be politically challenging for Mr. Sunak, given that he has repeatedly defended the process to counter demands from striking workers. Treasury economists are said to have concluded that 6% pay rises will not fuel inflation if they are funded within existing departmental budgets, not by new borrowing. Mr. Sunak has said having inflation this year is his number one priority, but it has been made more challenging as high prices prove to be more sticky than predicted. Meanwhile, hospital bosses have warned that doctors' strikes are all but wiping out the ability of the NHS to clear the COVID backlog. As junior doctors begin the longest walkout in health service history on Thursday, hospital leaders have said the chaos of repeated industrial action is fatally undermining their efforts to bear down on waiting lists. They also suggested Mr. Sunak will have little chance of meeting his key pledge to reduce waiting times if the situation continues into the autumn. The 5-day junior doctors' walkout will be followed next Thursday by a 2-day strike by consultants and a 48-hour walkout by radiographers at approximately a fifth of trusts on July 25. Mass teachers' strikes loom in the autumn term. On Wednesday, the NASUT teaching union announced that it had secured a mandate for industrial action in a dispute over pay. The NAHT School Leaders Union and the Association of School and College Leaders are also balloting members in England on industrial action, with their votes closing at the end of this month. Mr. Sunak said on Wednesday he would balance fairness with responsibility as he decided how to approach public sector pay. The Prime Minister told a press conference in Lithuania, "I am absolutely laser-focused on delivering for the British people. Their priorities are my priorities. Having inflation, because that's the best way that we can ease the burden on them and the cost of living, cutting waiting lists, because it's wrong that people have to wait as long as they are currently, and about stopping the boats because that's about simple fairness." Meanwhile, Mr. Hunt used an interview on 24 News Read's Peston program to double down on the insistence that borrowing would not be used to fund any pay rises. He said, "If you fund any public sector pay rise by increasing borrowing that year, that pumps billions of pounds of extra money into the economy." The Chancellor also played down the likelihood of tax cuts anytime soon, saying, "People who want tax cuts, as I and every Conservative does, want to put more money in people's pockets. And the quickest way that I can put money into people's pockets, and actually quite a large sum of money, is to have inflation. Billions of pounds of extra money into the economy." The Chancellor also played down the likelihood of tax cuts anytime soon, saying, "People who want tax cuts, as I and every Conservative does, want to put more money in people's pockets. And the quickest way that I can put money into people's pockets, and actually quite a large sum of money, is to have inflation. Sum of money, is to have inflation."
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos. Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Next RBA governor should not come from Treasury or Finance departments, Peter Dutton says. Opposition leader Peter Dutton says two of the government's potential picks to replace Philip Lowe as Reserve Bank governor would not be able to operate independently because of their established relationships with government. But a former Reserve Bank governor says that's a silly suggestion, and that the next governor's judgment and social conscience are far more important.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Governor's judgment and social conscience are far more important. Treasury Secretary Stephen Kennedy and Finance Secretary Jenny Wilkinson are among the candidates being floated to become the next RBA governor, as speculation mounts over whether the government will extend Mr. Lowe's term or replace him when it expires in September. But Mr. Dutton said the Treasury and Finance bosses should be ruled out of the running. "We can't have a situation where the government is appointing somebody who is familiar to the government, in the sense they have worked very closely with ministers, or the treasurer or the finance minister," Mr. Dutton said. "We can't have somebody who has been appointed by the Labour Party or indeed the coalition to a senior position within government. It needs to be somebody who is independent and has the best interests of the Australian public in mind. Senior coalition MPs including Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume have expressed their support for Mr. Lowe's term to be extended.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Senior coalition MPs including Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume have expressed their support for Mr. Lowe's term to be extended, saying he has navigated a difficult situation well. Former Governor Bernie Fraser, who was appointed directly from Treasury in 1989 and served for 7 years, rejected Mr. Dutton's suggestion. The main thing is the person who is appointed is a person of great judgment. What the bank governor has to do is make judgments. For that you need someone who is experienced in economic matters and has a social conscience, Mr. Fraser said. I don't really think it matters whether they come from the public service or wherever. Someone from the Treasury or Finance would have a pretty good handle on fiscal policy, and that's very much something that has to work hand in hand with monetary policy. It's a silly thing to rule out. The government is currently working to reform the Reserve Bank and further strengthen its independence from any government influence. While it has never been used, the government still has powers to override RBA decisions as a fail-safe, though the reforms would remove that power. Ministers have avoided making public comments on the Reserve Bank's decision to hike rates 12 times since May last year, and have backed Mr. Lowe as he has weathered a storm of criticism for statements he made in 2021 that rates would not begin to rise until mid-2024. Cabinet Minister Chris Bowen said Mr. Dutton's comments were offensive. It's an insult to departmental people. I'm not going to speculate on the RBA governor appointment. Mr. Dutton should respect that whoever is RBA governor at any given time will conduct themselves with all the rigor and independence that other governors have, Mr. Bowen said. While most RBA governors have spent all or the majority of their careers within the bank, appointing a governor from the Treasury is not unprecedented. There have been 8 Reserve Bank governors since central banking was split from the Commonwealth Bank in 1959. RBA governors have spent all or the majority of their careers within the bank. Appointing a governor from the Treasury is not unprecedented. There have been 8 Reserve Bank governors since central banking was split from the Commonwealth Bank in 1959.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos. Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Dumped wealth tax, Hipkins defends move despite anger from minor parties. Labour Party leader Chris Hipkins is confident he will not lose support from the left after drawing a line under talk of wealth taxes. Alongside the release of budget documents yesterday, Hipkins admitted he had shut down plans for a tax switch in this year's budget, which would have seen a tax-free bracket and a 1.5% tax on wealth above $5 million from 2024. But Hipkins, who is in Europe, killed the idea and said it would not happen if his party won a 3rd term in October.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
The idea and said it would not happen if his party won a 3rd term in October. New Zealanders want to see us focused on the issues they're very concerned about at the moment. They're concerned about the cost of living, they're concerned about the overall state of the economy, they're concerned about issues of law and order, and they're concerned about the quality of our public services. Hipkins also did not seem worried about the announcement upsetting potential coalition partners. The nature of proportional representation and the nature of MMP democracy is that in order to advance their policies, minor parties need support from a majority of Parliament. The Labour Party won't be supporting a wealth tax. Finance Minister Grant Robertson said he felt a wealth tax had merit but stood by the Prime Minister's point that it was an uncertain and volatile time for the economy. Robertson said he looked at a number of different tax options to address the cost of living crisis before finalizing this year's budget. As was the nature of the budget process, we discussed a lot of different ideas, some of them get through, some don't. The Prime Minister's made very clear his views on this particular issue, and so we
subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Discussed a lot of different ideas, some of them get through, some don't. The Prime Minister's made very clear his views on this particular issue, and so we moved forward with other things in the budget that also help with the cost of living. Looking at how to make the tax system fairer and how to support people with the rising cost of living were factors considered when looking at the idea of a capital gains tax, Robertson said. Now a lot of work went into it, so clearly it's an idea I thought had merit, but equally I also understand the business that I'm in. I'm a team player, there's a lot of other work to do. And I do also understand the points that the Prime Minister's making about the fact that this is a very uncertain and volatile time and major change in that has to be considered carefully. Robertson said investigating a capital gains tax was only one aspect of the government's huge and important work program. But we have a process, that process has been gone through, we're not going to be doing it, and I'm getting on with the job that I've got. Any tax cuts would have to be funded, otherwise tax cuts would lead to cuts elsewhere, and in the current economic environment that was not affordable, he said. Robertson would not rule out tax cuts, saying Labour's tax policy had not yet been announced and he would not play the rule in rule out game, adding now was not the time for major change in the tax system, he said. Current polling suggests that Labour would need the Green Party and Paddy Maori to form a government. Robertson said Labour would not buckle in its approach to coalition partners. For all of the coalition governments that have existed under MMP, it's the largest party's economic policy that sets the direction. Coalitions have to be built, everyone faces the same issues, but the Prime Minister's made clear his view around the future of these kinds of taxes or the lack of them in a government that Labour will lead, Robertson said. But the Green Party yesterday said it was a very real possibility it would refuse to join a coalition with Labour if it will not put a wealth tax back on the table. Green Party co-leader James Shaw said no party leader was in a position to rule anything out yet, as it was up to the voters to decide, and the Greens' ability to negotiate would depend on the number of MPs they had. Party members could decide it was better to walk away than be part of a government that would not reform the tax system, he said. If you are voting for the Green Party, then you are voting to support a Green and Labour government coalition, but if the terms of that aren't sufficient for our members, then we always reserve the right to support Labour in a minority government where they have to come to us for every single vote, and that is a very difficult proposition for them. That meant the Greens would have negotiating power, he said. Paddy Maori has also criticised the decision, saying Hipkins is effectively ending coalition discussions before they have even met. Always reserve the right to support Labour in a minority government where they have to come to us for every single vote, and that is a very difficult proposition for them. That meant the Greens would have negotiating power, he said. Paddy Maori has also criticised the decision, saying Hipkins is effectively ending coalition discussions before they have even met.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos. Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
France likely to have UPI system with India, first in Europe after Singapore. The primary focus during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to France may be on defence, but the two countries are poised to take giant steps in cooperation in areas such as the digital economy, manufacturing, and clean energy, including developments concerning the 9,900 MW Jadapur nuclear plant in Maharashtra.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Jadapur nuclear plant in Maharashtra. After 5 years, the India-France CEOs Forum has also been revived and is meeting in Quai d'Orsay, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs office, on July 14 with 10 to 12 corporate leaders from either side. While the Indian side will be co-chaired by Hari Barsha, co-chairman of the Jubilant Barsha Group, the French side will be headed by Paul Hermelin, chairman of information technology firm Capgemini SE. Hermelin has also been appointed by the French government as the point person for business and trade with India. Capgemini employs around 200,000 people in India and is set to open a 6G laboratory in Pune. Bilateral trade between India and France has doubled from 2014 to 14 billion euros, with the balance in favor of India. However, the big-ticket item that is currently work in progress between the two countries is the possible launch of the Digital Payment Technology Unified Payments Interface.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
Item that is currently work in progress between the two countries is the possible launch of the Digital Payment Technology Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, in France by Modi during his 2-day visit. In 2023, UPI and Singapore's PayNow signed an agreement, allowing users in either country to make cross-border transactions. If the Macron government agrees to do the same with UPI and PCI, the company behind UPI, and France's Lyra have been working on this for a year, then France will become the first European country to have UPI. It is understood that if all agreements are closed in time, the linkage will be launched by PM Modi from an iconic location in Paris. The other major focus of PM Modi's visit will be on clean energy. It was from Paris that he had launched the International Solar Alliance in 2015, which today has 100 member countries. The focus this time will be on green hydrogen, renewables, batteries, and small modular reactors. In this context, the two sides have also made significant progress in the 1650x6 MW Jadapur nuclear power project, with forward momentum to technical discussions on the 8,000-page techno-commercial offer made by France in 2019. It is understood that this exercise will come to fruition soon and the plant will become a reality as part of a bilateral clean energy initiative. The French are also open to technology transfer and are keen to get French companies to diversify their manufacturing and sourcing footprint, and are looking at India as an alternative global supply chain hub to China. France is also ready to build collaboration with India for EXA-scale computing. France has been India's partner in supercomputing in the past and shared technology. Global supply chain hub to China. France is also ready to build collaboration with India for EXA-scale computing. France has been India's partner in supercomputing in the past and shared technology.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos. Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.